just how cringe getting headshots is on this game until you have to.
Oh
He
my
literally
God.
just did a 180-degree turn and then jumped across the map in a singular frame. Hello and welcome to the Warframe tier list. Today we'll be going over Ivara, and first things first, let's go into the builds. There is a lot to talk about, so I'm going to jump right in. All of these builds are an Artemis Bow centric build, making use of concentrated arrow to convert the multi-shot into a single arrow that explodes on precision headshot. It has a 7-meter base explosion radius, though the explosion radius does scale off of your range mods, and it also double dips multiplicatively with primed firestorm. With large range, such as this 235% range build, you have a 16.45 meter range multiplied by 144, which gives you a 23.7 meter explosion radius, which is nasty. The Artemis Bow's explosion doesn't deal that much damage by itself, but it does force proc impact, and you can convert that impact proc to a slash proc thanks to internal bleeding, and you have low enough fire rate for this to have a 70% chance on impact to apply slash. This means that Roar, which was my preferred focus skill of choice, is incredibly useful as it not only increases your raw damage, but it double dips and increases the damage from the slash DOT as well. Empowered Quiver to give you even more crit damage whenever you're on your zipline, which you will be heavily encouraged to sit on your zipline for most of the game. I'm running a lot of conditional strength mods such as multi-augmented growing power energy conversion, also Moderai with sling strength for 40% more ability strength, and also the Parazon with a power drain for 50% more ability strength. With all of these buffs up at once, you can snapshot your strength all the way up to 309% to give yourself a 309% strength Artemis Bow, a 309% strength Prowl for extra headshot damage for single target damage, and 309% strength for your Quiver for Empowered Quiver, giving you 309% critical damage. With Roar, you will have all of these buffs except for the Parazon buff, giving you a 259% strength Roar for roughly a 78% strength Roar in the end. All of this is incredible damage, especially for a slash build, allowing you to scale for a very long time. The second build is a Nourish build, which does have some anti-synergy as you have to run combat discipline, as the point of the Nourish build is the AoE explosion on the Artemis Bow does not proc any IPS or element statuses other than impact. This means you have no way to spread viral outside of just priming with whatever your secondary is, so you lose a lot of damage, especially for a slash build. Combat Discipline plus Nourish damages yourself to AoE spread viral thanks to Nourish in a 33.6 meter range. The reason this has anti-synergy is because anytime you take damage while inside of Prowl, you lose a lot of energy, and you have high KPM with this build, so sustaining this build is a bit rough. This build in the end is very high KPM and DPM, it's just kind of annoying, and I did prefer Roar instead. A third build is an Ensnare build, as Ivara gets absolutely hard countered by acolytes, and if you make a single mistake, you will instantly die. You can use Sleep Arrow on them, but if you don't instantly kill them, they will break free of the Sleep Arrow in only like 2 seconds, so if you don't one-shot them, they will turn and kill you. Ensnare CCs them for a longer time, allowing you to set up properly even if you make a mistake, and get a couple hits in before they kill you. Another option is a Well of Life build, and Well of Life is good for a lazier playstyle if you don't want to sit there and try to get precision headshots, as you can CC an enemy, lift them up into the air, and they are invincible for as long as you have duration for, and you can just spam shoot their head, proccing your AoE explosion on all the enemies around them. For that build, it would pretty much be the same as this Ensnare build, except for you would drop Empowered Quiver, as you wouldn't really be able to sit on it, and drop Streamline for Equilibrium, and then run the Well of Life augment for giving yourself infinite sustain. Now, as for the weapon loadout, you can either choose to use a shotgun or a rifle as your primary. You can choose whichever one you like, as the only reason you're using a primary on Ivara is for a pseudo stat stick. You want to slot all 4 of the Vigilante mods, as each of them give you a 5% chance on your Artemis Bow to increase your tier of crit. With all 4 of them, you have a 20% chance to increase your crit from a yellow to a orange, or an orange to a red. A shotgun, you get access to shotgun Amalgam Shotgun Barrage for 45% revive speed for helping yourself revive your teammates and fallen companions. If you choose to use a rifle instead, you get access to Amalgam Serration for 25% sprint speed. Normally the sprint speed would be significantly better, but on Ivara you can't sprint while you're using your third ability Prowl, so it's really a trade-off that you have to just consider for yourself. Do you want sprint speed for when you're not in Prowl, which you'll be in Prowl for 99% of the time, or revive speed for just quality of life? As to the secondary, I was using a Compressa for popping nullifier bubbles and for applying viral procs to anything that needed it, and also AoE applying cold in a small radius to help myself get headshots anytime enemies were being annoying. If you do not have nullifiers in your game, I would opt for the Epitaph, as it has a much larger AoE, force applies cold on the explosion, and you can still apply heat and viral in a much larger radius. As to the melee, you have 2 choices. You can run the Praetos for 30% parkour velocity, as the main way you will be moving around on Ivara is either in your operator, or you will be spam roll dodging, and the parkour velocity makes you go farther with your roll. Speaking of, another thing you want on your secondaries is Amalgam Barrel Diffusion for the 60% dodge speed, for the same reason that the Praetos is good. An alternate to the Praetos is a Glaive with a build similar to this. Instead of the Riven, it would be Gladiator Might for 60% crit damage, and you could even drop the Bane, as the main reason that the Glaive is good on Ivara is to have a button to one-shot kill the Acolytes with, because again, Acolytes are Ivara's Bane. As to the focus schools, you can run Moderai for the 40% ability strength and 50% casting speed. The 50% casting speed isn't too important on Ivara, but it helps a little bit. Phoenix Talons also exist, but unfortunately it does not buff the damage from Artemis Bow. An alternate for Madurai is Uneru, and Uneru is really good because it gives you poise. If you do not have Prime Sure-Footed, you have to run Uneru. Even if you have Prime Sure-Footed, running Uneru anyway is a good option, as it allows you to drop Prime Sure-Footed for Cunning Drift, which in the end with Prime Firestorm gives you a 2 meter higher explosion radius on your AoE. Caustic Strike is also really good for armor stripping Acolytes, so you can guaranteed one-shot them with the Artemis Bow. Same thing with Madurai though. With Void Strike, you can just pre-Void Strike before the Acolyte spawns to help you one-shot them with your bow. As to the bow builds, I was running a raw corrosive build for all of the non-Nourish builds, and for the Nourish build, I was just getting rid of the 2 elemental mods for a Bane and Vigilante armaments for multi-shot and double dipping on slash dots. Last but not least is the Companion. I was using an Adarza Kavat for 60% flat crit chance to help myself do even more damage, with Tech Enhance to extend the ability duration of Cat's Eye, so it lasts for 13 seconds with a 20-second cooldown, so this is up a large portion of the game. You can instead still just use a Panzer like normal, as again, you don't really have a good way to spread viral, so the Panzer spreading viral with viral quills is arguably just as good, if not better, than the Adarza even in this case. Now moving on to the rankings, we're discussing Ivara in relation to 4 separate topics. Firstly, her KPM, secondly, her survivability, thirdly, her viability, and finally, how fun she is to play. All of this data is sampled from a 1-hour solo Steel Path bot roll with no specters, no on-call, and of course no Archon shards. Now let's get on to the first topic, Ivara's KPM. Now Ivara actually has very decent KPM thanks to her main damage type being Slash, thanks to her force proccing Impact and being able to convert Impact to Slash with internal bleeding. Combined with Roar, this gives you very nice damage scaling, even being able to scale into the thousands. With the other builds, you will notice your damage start to falter even before the 1-hour mark with the Well of Life and Ensnare builds, but it's good enough, and it has such a wide range that you do get really good raw KPM early into the missions. Like, for example, one of my very first initial testing runs, I was running 280% range with Unaru, as I was running Cunning Drift instead of Prime Shore-Footed, and I had the circular room that I use in a lot of these videos for suck frames, like in the Vabin video. I got over 210 KPM at the 15-minute mark. Now, it did go down significantly later in the mission, but that is the highest KPM I have ever gotten on any Warframe ever at the 15-minute mark. Even my Mirage, who after an entire hour got 183 KPM, she probably was at like 195, maybe 200 at the 15-minute mark, but Ivara was still chilling at 210. That is absolutely absurd. That being said, that was a one-off thing, and the rest of the runs around that time, I was sitting at around 130 to 140, and at the end of the 1 hour mark, I was pretty consistently getting about 110 to 130, which again is still a good KPM, especially since it has scaling thanks to it being a slash build and Roar being able to double dip the slash dots. I will give her an S rank for her KPM. Now moving on to the second topic, her survivability, and Ivara is an invis frame, meaning that she automatically has high survivability. That doesn't mean that she gets off scot-free, however, as she does have some issues, namely Acolytes and Arson Eximus. See, most other invis frames, even when they get hit, they have something that they can do immediately to keep themselves alive. With Ivara, you have the opposite of that. For Ivara, most of the time you're going to be sitting on a zipline, and if you get hit by a dot or something, you can't just immediately cleanse it. You either have to jump off of the zipline and then roll to proc your rolling guard to cleanse the status, or you have to aim at the nearest surface and shoot it with a cloak arrow if you're running the empowered quiver augment to give yourself status immunity. Both of these take more time than just simply pressing rolling guard, so if you get caught off guard, you will just die. And if you don't have Prime Shore-Footed or Poise up on Unaru and you get hit by an Arson Eximus while you're on your zipline, you will get knocked down, you'll have a heat proc, and then you will die before you can react. So she does have those issues. On top of this, she can't sprint, as if you sprint, you lose your invisibility, and Ivara is a sitting duck without her invisibility. She has no other form of survivability in her kit whatsoever. So the second you're visible, you're just boom, you're dead. And her not being able to sprint is a detriment, as you can't reposition yourself if you ever do get in danger. You won't be able to kite away from an acolyte or anything either, like Violence if he's trying to silence you. So she does have some survivability problems, but for the most part, she's completely fine because she's invisible. It's just in very certain circumstances, she can run into some issues with her survivability, but for the most part, it is good. I will give her an A rank for her survivability. Just be careful around Arson Eximus and Acolytes and Nullifiers, as Nullifiers will obviously get rid of your invisibility. Now moving on to the third topic, her Viability, and this is where she struggles. Ivara really is not good anywhere. She's decent in survival. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. She's decent in solo survival, because in group survival it is a lot harder to do her intended gameplay, because most other people won't want to just sit there and chill with you on your zipline. B, the enemies will be looking everywhere, so it's a lot harder to get consistent headshots. Yes, in a group you could just drop the Artemis Bow and just like shoot a standard AoE weapon like a Brahma with 300% crit damage from your zipline. Like, who knew? That's still good. But using the Artemis Bow or just like convincing your team to sit with you on your zipline and do what Ivara wants to do is like not gonna go too well. And she's also good for solo interception, but no one really does solo interception, because why would you do that? Even Ivara, who's one of the best frames for solo interception still sucks. There's like no reason to do it. It's just always slower than just being in a 4-man. So she's also good for like random meme content that you're forced to do, like animal capturing and mining in the open worlds. So she does have that benefit. Other invis frames can do it as well, but Ivara is definitely the best of all of them, just because you're just permanently invisible, so you don't have to worry about being seen and just getting ganked by enemies or like losing your perfect capture. She's also decent in disruption, but even in disruption, she's not amazing as she's just not quick enough. And for everyday missions, she's terrible in them because again, prowl, you cannot sprint and prowl, and if you're visible, you're dead. I know some people will be like, just slot 5 Archon shards for parkour velocity forehead, but the reality is, that's still terrible. Just only having the option to roll around is so slow, even with parkour mods, especially in 90% of these tile sets. Your operator will still be faster than just rolling everywhere as Ivara. Now, obviously, it sounds like I'm saying that you have to be in prowl for the entirety of the mission, even in something like a capture, and that isn't true, but still, just the fact of the matter is, like, she's not good anywhere. And you still will be in prowl anytime that you're actively engaging enemies, which will just be slower than every other frame in the game. So, like, outside of extremely niche things, she's just across the board bad. And then in those extremely niche things, she's either decent for half of them or the best in the other half. But like, is being the best animal capture really like, is that really something to be proud of? I don't know. I'm giving her a D- rank for her viability. Fight me over it. Alright, now moving on to the final topic of is Ivara fun? And I actually think that Ivara is okay. The reason for this is because there's something very relaxing about just sitting on a zipline with muffled game sounds due to her prowl ability, just muffling everything, and just plucking away at enemies' heads and just seeing explosions, damage numbers everywhere, everything dying, and you just get to hear the background music on the game. Like, let me ask you a genuine question. When's the last time you played this game on and you actually heard the background music? All of these missions, I was playing as Ivara, I was just sitting on a zipline, just listening to this extremely chill background void music, just shooting enemies in the head, watching them die, just seeing explosions everywhere, just casual, soothing music. I don't know, it was just kind of relaxing. It's also different. It's a change of pace like all of the other frames in the entire game. It's very unique. But at the same time, it's still not necessarily fun. It just isn't boring. It's like incredibly average. I'll give her a C+ rank for her fun. And honestly, I think this is where a lot of people will disagree. I think people will either be like, oh no, she's really fun. She's like an A tier fun. Or people will be like, no, she's the most boring frame in the game, F. Like, why'd you give her a C, you idiot? She's an F. But I don't know. I think she's C+. I think she's pretty okay. It's a nice change of pace. I could see myself playing her again. In conclusion, Ivara is a pretty average B tier Warframe who isn't really good anywhere, but you can just play her in survival missions, and she's a nice change of pace and can be fun, and does have potential for very high KPM.